Good evening, early birds. We'll start in 20 seconds. You're not seeing double. There are two people here. One is male, one is female. One is a layperson, one is an ordained. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good evening. This is the Tibet Center, Kunchab Tarduling Buddhist Meditation and Study Center, located in New York City and northern New Jersey. And this is our twice weekly Dharma presentation. We're very blessed tonight to have a guest lecturer, our sister who has come home. She studied with the Tibet Center years ago in India. Jackie Healy, aka her ordained name is Tenzin Karuna. Unusual to have a Sanskrit name. That's very, very auspicious. Karuna means compassion. And tonight's talk will be on 8 verses on training the mind, the Lojong talk. So I'll be reciting the prayers. Jackie, welcome. Bless your heart for remembering the Tibetan and coming back home to us. You really lightened our hearts. So I'm going to take myself off the screen because you're sick of looking at me. And I'll say the prayers here. First, prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious 3 precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living here, together with their near ones who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness. May they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. The Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi which examines the dharmas, called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the 5 skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, how should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge? And Avalokiteshvara answered, Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the 5 skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty. Emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge, and since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future by means of transcendent knowledge fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering, should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed, Tayata Om Gate Gate Parasam Gate Bodhisoha. O Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva, mahasattva, should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound, transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, humans, Asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the Blessed One. Refuge and Bodhisattva vow, which we recite 3 times. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today, in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today, in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today, in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. May all the pains of living creatures ripen solely upon myself, and through the might of the Bodhisattva Sangha, may all beings experience happiness. May the teachings, which are the sole medicine for suffering and the origin of every joy, be materially supported and honored and abide for a very long time. I prostrate to Manjughosha, through whose kindness wholesome minds ensue, and I prostrate to my spiritual masters, through whose kindness I develop. I neglected to say that if there is anyone for whom you want us to pray for who has recently died, then I will be praying for my ex-boss, Marty Rabinowitz, who recently died, so among others. You put their names in the chat box as soon as you can. Don't wait till the end. As a further cause for the quick return of Rato Chungla Rinpoche, His Holiness has written this prayer, a prayer for a swift return, which we say every time we gather. Exalted wisdom of all victors gathered in a drop, sole refuge manifest in the form of the one wearing saffron robes, Guru Lojong Teaching Dorje Chan, please bear witness here today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great torch of doctrine, accomplishing from long ago the vast waves of aspirational prayers, Lord of speech of the Victor Losang's teachings, spreading them to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. Though holding the commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests in unsurpassed great awakening. Yet you have withdrawn the activities of the form body that serves the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among beings, the bodhisattvas? Though impossible for you till cyclic existence's end to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of Nirmanakaya to swiftly return from the realm of Dharmakaya, brought forth by bodhicitta drawn by 7 steeds. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emanation, full holder of the sage's teachings and wish-fulfilling jewel, return as the glory of Losang Tempe, magnificent truth of the 3 precious jewels, Mahakala, Karma Yama, and Sri Mata Devi, and the ocean of Dharma protectors. May you spontaneously fulfill our wish, the swift blossoming of the reincarnation's fresh moonlight face. Venerable Tenzin, thank you so much for being here.
And thank you very much, Tony. I also want to say thank you, Tony, for all you do to help Rinpoche shine the light of Dharma for all of us sentient beings stuck in the quagmire of samsara. Your devotion over the last 46 years, not taking a day off except when your wife died, and all the rest that you do to run the center. I am truly inspired. I bow to your joyous and perseverance. Yay for Tony.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Totally unnecessary and silly.
Okay.
You're stalling.
Oh, stop.
So what's tonight's topic?
Oh, sorry. We're starting the 8 verses of Training the Mind by Geshe Langri of the 11th century. And I wanted to select something that we all know and that is thought very highly of in Mahayana Buddhism, and that's bodhicitta. And thanks to Langri we have 8 simply written but difficult to practice instructions to help us strengthen our bodhicitta. After each verse, I will also include his pith instructions that summarize the verse. These are in the anthology of precious Kadampa writings, which Sarame Kensor Losang Tarchin Rinpoche, who I will refer to as Arya Ken Rinpoche, points out in his summary on this book, on these writings. And also, my other sources are Chekwa's commentary, and this is this book, The Essential Mind Training, and also who he wrote the 7-point mind training, and also His Holiness's commentary, which can be found online, and also Geshe Lakdor's recent talk at the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives in Dharamsala, where I am a student. So the first verse we start with the determination to accomplish the highest welfare for all sentient beings who surpass even a wish-granting jewel, I will learn to hold them supremely dear. Then the pith instruction here is to cultivate the view that all sentient beings are extremely kind. I didn't know much about wish-granting jewels, but luckily Chekawa went into some detail. A wish-granting jewel doesn't work if it's dirty or tarnished, but if it's cherished and treated as a valuable object by washing it in scented water on a full moon day, adorning the tip of a victory banner with it, and making offerings to it, it becomes the source of all earthly wishes. So here sentient beings are being likened to this. They even surpass this. When I first heard this verse, I thought I took it literally and assumed that you cherish sentient beings because of their wish-granting properties. Oh, this person's going to help me, so I'm going to, down the line, so I'm going to help them. So, which just sounded like business, kind of like I scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of thing. But thinking of them as a jewel is just a benefit of cherishing others and not the reason to cherish them. This made sense as these verses are related to the practice of exchanging self and others. Thinking of the benefits of cherishing others is the third of the 5 points of exchanging self and others, which is a method for generating bodhicitta. Just as a quick aside, there are 2 methods for generating bodhicitta. The first is the 7-point cause and effect method, and the other is exchanging self and others, which has 5 steps. Later, Tsongkhapa combined these 2 into 11 points, and since then, other teachers like Geshe Damjul have combined these into 9 steps. I will not expand on all of these due to time constraints, but will briefly mention the 5. First is equalizing self and others. The next is the faults of cherishing them. The next is the faults of self-cherishing. Then the benefits of cherishing others. The 4th step is generating the actual thought of exchanging self and others. And the last step is the actual practice of Tonglen, giving and taking. His Holiness the Dalai Lama summarizes, the main point of this verse is to develop an attitude that enables you to regard other sentient beings as precious, much in the manner of precious jewels. He also emphasizes how we rely on sentient beings for everything, our clothes, our food, and all of our good qualities. You can't practice generosity without other sentient beings. He also stresses the need to have self-compassion, saying that the fundamental point is that if we do not have the capacity to love yourself, then there is simply no basis on which to build a sense of caring towards others. If you need to have love for you need to have love for yourself before you can give that love away, and the same with respect. Love, caring, kindness, compassion need to first reside in your heart. Of course, once they're there, you don't want to just hold on to them, but share them and give them to others. This will let them grow even more across the expanse of the universe. This verse not only helps us cultivate our aspirational bodhicitta resolve, but also helps us maintain and keep it strong. The wish to attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings would not be long lived unless you thought very highly of sentient beings. You wouldn't want to put in a lot of effort that you wouldn't want to put in the effort needed to become a Buddha unless you felt that they were worth it. Right now, sentient beings are all stuck in the mud and quagmire of samsara and might not appear to be valuable or even worth helping. Walk down the street and to find two people screaming at each other for some reason, people honking their horns in anger along the BQE, people littering without any concern,
Oh, yeah.
someone in Penn Station getting upset as a homeless person spat on them, noticing an increase in popularity of self-obsession, someone interacts with you in a way you don't like, the increase of racism, so now we need signs to tell us lives matter, knowing about global mistreatment of animals, the elderly, global warming, war. The list is endless. I don't know about you, but I already feel drained from just thinking about these and don't feel inspired at all to reach Buddhahood for myself, let alone anyone else. But if we know and feel that under all this mess there is something worth helping, it gives us the motivation to remain fixed on the goal to accomplish the highest welfare for all sentient beings, to maintain the awakening mind. We need to get these muddy wish-granting gems out of the mud of samsara and aspire to cherish them always, respect them always, treasure them always, help them always, and love them always. The second verse, whenever I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest among all and respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. And the pith instruction here is, in particular, view yourself as lowly and cultivate respect for others. I really liked trying some of these at work when I did work. But I initially decided against this one, as in business you can't look weak, spineless, degrade yourself, or become a doormat. And this is what this verse sounded like to me initially. Luckily I was wrong. As Chekhov says, this verse is to help vanquish conceit and pride. In other words, become more humble and learn to respect others. And why do we want to remove conceit and pride? Because we want to reduce our afflictions. As long as we have still a strong grasping at self, we will cherish that self more than we cherish others, and this leads to afflictions. As Dharmakirti said, once we apprehend a self, we grasp at that self. This gives rise to attachment to I and mine. This exaggerates the importance of I, creating self-centeredness, self-cherishing. This leads to craving for our happiness, which leads to afflictions. This process is automatic and won't completely stop until we have reached Buddhahood. In the meantime, we can work on lessening our feelings of how important we are. We can reduce our conceit and pride and become more humble. This will help us reduce our afflictions, as we will not always be out to get happiness just for ourselves. When you think of yourself as number one, it's exhausting. Fighting to be top dog, and things like sports being number one. We are number one. We can bring out the extreme of pride with very ugly situations, such as when the winner goes on a violent spree of car tipping, setting things on fire, and breaking windows. On the other hand, being humble feels much more peaceful. It brings more contentment. And if you push it to an extreme, you won't end up tipping over cars, but feel your self-cherishing lessen and your happiness grow. This doesn't mean you become a doormat, as there is strength and admiration in being humble. No one likes an extremely arrogant, conceited person, even in business. In the next part of the verse about increasing respect for others, Chekhov suggests acknowledging everyone's good qualities. Even small ones are very commendable, considering everyone is impure and has contaminated aggregates. In fact, the fact that anyone can do anything nice or be decent sometimes amazes me under our current samsaric situation. Afflictions are truly poisons, and we are infected with them. The fact that anything good can come out of anyone is worthy of respect. At work, I tried to think of something I respected and admired about each person I came into contact with. For some people, it was more difficult. For one person, I couldn't think of anything until I went to their desk and saw a picture of them with their family. Then it dawned on me that they could have good qualities that I haven't seen, as it appears more outside the office. They might be a good parent, might have rescued their dog, volunteer at a homeless shelter on Thanksgiving. You just never know. To get a it also is good to it's also very helpful to remember that to get a human rebirth, you need to have done something virtuous in a past life, something worthy of praise. Therefore, all humans alive today are worthy of respect. His Holiness the Dalai Lama summarizes in the second verse, the point being made is that the recognition of the preciousness of other sentient beings and the sense of caring that you develop on that basis should not be grounded in a feeling of pity towards other sentient beings, that is, on the thought that they are inferior. Rather, what is being emphasized is the sense of caring for other sentient beings and a recognition of their preciousness based on reverence and respect as superior beings. Pity has a hint of arrogance as it's based on the duality of superior and inferior. Compassion and empathy, on the other hand, do not. As an excerpt from a psychology article, when you use pity, you position yourself as a savior, superior being who helps the victim. This inflates your ego, which is not good, and encourages the victim behavior on the other one you are helping in this way, which is also not good. And so the third verse is, in all actions I will learn to search my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. And the pith instruction here is to watch your mind and drive out mental afflictions. His Holiness the Dalai Lama summarizes, this verse really gets to the heart of what could be called the essence of the practice of the Buddha Dharma. This verse addresses how to combat defilements, afflictive emotions, and thoughts. And why do we do this? Work on removing defilements? The goal is nicely summarized by the Buddha in 4 lines. Don't do anything negative. Do everything that is positive. Completely transform, purify your mind. This is my teaching. One of the biggest obstacles one of our biggest obstacles is that we are working with contaminated aggregates. We wouldn't be in samsara if our aggregates were pure. If we haven't had a direct realization of emptiness, we still believe our aggregates are us. So it's hard for us to think of them as contaminated, as it feels like putting ourselves down. I used to find it hard to be mindful, or very hard to be mindful, and now I just feel like it's hard. There's...
Leave that, that's okay, that comes up all the time.
Okay.
It's harassment.
I think that's partly because I don't think of my... Okay, sorry, I'm going to have to start that over. The flow is just off now. I used to find it very hard to be mindful. Now maybe just hard. I think that's partly because I don't think of my aggregates as being contaminated. They are just fine, reasonably pure, and so why bother watching them, as I can trust them? If I really felt they were contaminated, I would be more vigilant about being mindful and watch them more carefully. And before I go on again about enjoying doing practice at work, just in case my old boss is watching this, I would like to say that it helped me to become a better worker to practice at work. And also, I hope you don't mind that I quote you later. Anyway, when I went to the kitchen at work, I would try to see how many afflictions would arise. Oh, their lunch smells weird. I can't believe they left dirty dishes in the sink. What a great handbag. I want one. I can't believe my project manager wants me to work on that. Oh, no. So-and-so's coming, and they're going to ask me so many questions. Oh, nice, I got the last yogurt. Oh, man, I can't believe it's not flavored. Maybe I should go check another kitchen. not one pure, selfless, kind thought, and more than 10 negative ones. Based on these findings, it slowly started to dawn on me that maybe my aggregates weren't as uncontaminated as I hoped, which inspired me to be more mindful when I could. His Holiness's in His Holiness's Dalai Lama's commentary, he stresses the need to apply antidotes to the afflictions to counteract them, like generating feelings of compassion to counter anger, feelings of contentment to lessen greed, the cultivation of gratitude and appreciation to stop disparagement. These afflictions can be so difficult and disruptive that in the last line, "Furly face and avert it," there is some hint that force, mental of course, is needed to help stop them. In the 37 Practice of the Bodhisattvas by Sangpo, it uses the word slay in verse 35. The practice of a bodhisattva is to slay attachment and the mind and the rest, mind's afflictions at once, the very moment they arise. This emphasizes how difficult and important they are to remove. In fact, sometimes they are even difficult to notice, as some of them are so slippery, looking like a friend and feeling so nice and comforting. While I'm in New York, I am staying near a Trader Joe's. That's where I met almond butter coca bars. India has excellent food, but I have to admit I, like other Americans there, miss Trader Joe's. It's not just because I love ABC bars, but it connects me to home. I kind of like missing things as it reminds me of the comfort of home. No wonder in the 37 practices, the second verse is about giving up your homeland, attachment city. Other afflictions are also very deceptive, such as negative pride, as it can camouflage itself as a positive emotion of confidence. You have to think you're going to do a good job, otherwise you probably won't. But if unchecked, it becomes, "This will be the best talk ever. It will get so hundreds of views, maybe thousands." Shh. I'm sorry. These slippery afflictions have been referred to as our worst enemy, such as in Shantideva's Bodhisattva way of life. I may be slain or buried alive. Likewise, I may be decapitated. Under no circumstances will I bow before my enemy, the afflictions. As we are not Buddhas yet, there will be times that afflictions seem to take us over. We need to remember they are still enemies and try to remove them as soon as possible. Acknowledge that the enemy has temporarily gotten into the castle gates. Do all you can to remove them and tell them not to return. Geshe Lakdor often mentions picturing afflictions or harmful emotions as monsters and then squashing their ugly heads the moment they arise. I couldn't help think of that late 70s game called Whack-A-Mole. It was this arcade game with a bunch of holes, and these little mechanical moles would pop up, and you had to smash them with this rubber mallet. Not quite a Buddhist game, but if you label each with an affliction, maybe it would be. Oh, there's anger, smash, jealousy, plonk. Sometimes it's good to make these exercises fun. Plus, having the afflictions be something outside of yourself adds some space between you and the afflictions. They become something you can watch and not get so involved in. You don't need to be as closely linked to them. After all, they are all empty of inherent existence. In all the commentaries I read, they mentioned how important it is to stop afflictions when you see them coming, when their little heads are picking out. This is because it's easier to stop them when they are not full-blown and in your face. When they are just peeking out, some don't even you don't even need much force to remove them. Even if you can just distract yourself for a moment by even just moving your head, or taking a deep breath, that can stop irritation and even anger from appearing. So the fourth verse, I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings as if I found a precious treasure difficult to find. And the fifth instruction here is, cherish is hard to find those in their misery who commit evil or suffer greatly. When most people see someone suffering greatly, either in real life or through media, like homeless people in the subway, abused animals and starving children in commercials, victims of natural disasters or casualties of war on the news, we get sad. It's hard to equate this situation to the joy of finding a precious treasure. For that, we would be more than happy. We would be ecstatic, overjoyed, totally excited. But as students of Jason Kampa, who expounded the importance and truth of dependent origination and its implications, just as how cause and effect, such as how cause and effect operate infallibly for all, we should try to understand that even though the situation is sad, it is just a fruition of past karma. It is a part of nature, how the world works. Their resultant suffering would be happening even if we hadn't encountered it. As a brave bodhisattva, when we come across a suffering being, we can bring them onto our path, use the situation as something positive for them, ourselves, and all others, thereby transforming suffering into a treasure. In these situations that bring us sadness, we can cultivate and strengthen our compassion, thinking that even though this being must have done something negative in their past, and that this is just karma ripening, this being is no different than us in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. Also, being a Dharma practitioner, also not being a Dharma practitioner, they don't know about the dangers of the three poisons and other afflictions. Instead, they live their lives through their veil. They don't realize these afflictions are appendages, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama often mentions. They are not a part of us and something that should and can be removed. We can also think that this being is truly stuck in samsara, as they don't even view samsara as something negative, something that needs to be escaped from. On the other hand, we are very lucky. We have met the Dharma and are working to get out of samsara, reducing our self-cherishing attitude and self-grasping mind. We should work to realize that any hesitation we have to help this being is just due to our self-cherishing attitude, which is also an appendage that we are working on removing. Then, without pushing ourselves, we should do as much as we feel we can to help them physically, verbally, or mentally. Sometimes even smiling at someone or saying a kind word can be of great help to someone. There are so many positive things that can be done, like sending them white light, reciting a mantra, or doing Tan Lem. Afterwards, to strengthen our virtuous action, we should dedicate our virtue to become enlightened for the sake of all beings. So instead of having two sad people, now one is less sad because they have been helped, and the other, you, has transformed sadness and suffering into a tool to strengthen your bodhicitta and bodhisattva resolve, which also makes all sentient beings better off, as through your bodhisattva resolve, they are one step closer to enlightenment. If you really get good at this practice and become happy when you see a suffering person, you should keep it to yourself. People will think you're nuts if you start bouncing up and down with excitement next to someone who is suffering. But just know that Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas are very happy and pleased because of your actions. In this example, the person's suffering was used to strengthen compassion. In the case of Atisha, he used it to strengthen his patience. When Atisha was in Tibet, he had a servant, Atara, who was very bad-tempered and who always caused other people to get angry. When asked why he kept him, Atisha explained that he did so in order to practice patience, for without patience you could not become a great yogi. So maybe we should consider paying Eugene here to be grumpy and mean to everyone so we can practice our patience. So verse 5. Sorry. He made me laugh. Let's blame Eugene. Okay. When others out of jealousy treat me badly, with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. And the pith instruction here is accept such loss as being blamed without trying to defend yourself. His Holiness summarizes, when others provoke you, perhaps for no reason. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. His Holiness summarizes, when others provoke you, perhaps for no reason or unjustly, instead of reacting in a negative way as a true practitioner of altruism, you should be able to be tolerant towards them. You should remain unperturbed by such treatment. This is a very difficult practice. It seems like a primal instinct to negatively react when someone provokes us. The moment someone puts us down and hurts our ego, we nearly immediately do whatever we can to protect our ego and bring ourselves back up. Our most common response is revenge or retaliation. Revenge and retaliation are said to be coping mechanisms to avoid shame. They are referred to as a misguided attempt to transform shame into pride by getting the upper hand. What makes stopping this reaction so difficult is we don't see these disturbing emotions coming. Unlike the third verse, these attacks usually come out of left field, so they appear full on right away. The mole just pops out of the hole and there is no time to see them coming. So what do we do? As Arya Ken Rinpoche says, to not get upset in the first place, we need to understand the disadvantages of anger and the benefits of patience. As Shantideva says in the beginning of chapter 6, the Patience chapter, there is no evil like hatred and no fortitude like patience. As mentioned, one of the most common responses to anger and its smaller cousin resentment is revenge. It has been shown in studies and also in fictional movies and TV shows that revenge is not a dish worth serving at all, whether hot or cold. And yes, I did like The Wrath of Khan at the time. It doesn't make the person happy. It causes anxiety. It doesn't bring the other party closer to apologizing or feeling remorse for their actions. And if unchecked, it leads to violence and tragedy. From a Buddhist perspective, it destroys vast amounts of merit. It displeases the Buddhas and stops our hope of enlightenment. Patience, on the other hand, is shown to decrease anxiety, depression, feelings of loneliness. It increases better health, empathy, kindness, and from a Buddhist point of view, it purifies negative karma and creates vast merit. Plus, it pleases the Buddhas as we are showing kindness to someone they love. For more help on understanding the disadvantages of anger and the benefits of patience, Shantideva's Patience chapter in the Bodhisattva Way of Life can never go amiss. The short-term solution to lessen our upset, lighten our negative reaction, is do damage control. One suggestion I heard from a teacher to view the person who is mistreating you is mentally ill. You aren't going to get upset with someone who can't help acting negatively towards you. Another technique is to think of how unhappy this person must be to abuse someone and create and generate compassion for them. As a Dharma practitioner, you are more able to handle this situation, and if you kept fighting with them, they might not be able to handle it as well, and they might take it out on others. So take the high road and don't retaliate. Also remember that it is the afflictions that are responsible for the negative behavior and not the person. So if you're going to get angry at anything, get angry at the afflictions and use that as a motive for you to keep working at removing them in yourself. You can also think about how jealousy is a dependent origination, so it is empty. It is not something they own. They have no choice in the matter. It is not under their control. It is not theirs. There is another way to turn this experience into something positive. If possible, you can use it as an exercise to help understand the selflessness of persons better, the lack of inherently existent self. Enchanter Kirti's entering the middle way, as well as the Lamrin chapters that Tony is covering now. This is referred to as negating the inherently existent I or self. They emphasize how important it is to first identify the inherently existent I. Otherwise, how do you know what to negate? It is easiest to identify the inherently existent I when the I seems the strongest. The two most commonly used examples of when this happens is when you feel your life is at stake, like standing close near a cliff, obviously not something you should do on purpose, and when someone blames you for something you didn't do. How dare you blame me?
Breaking the signal.
What? A break?
Start again. Can you start again, Tony?
Oh,
Take it down, bring it up.
For some reason it started over again. Yeah, it stopped. So when you come back on, just say sorry. We had a glitch before.
Okay.
oh, where do I start again?
Where you left off, right there, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Wait, you're back on. You're back on. Sorry. Go. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay, we had a glitch, we're back.
I don't know where to start.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Right there, it's good.
Okay, I'm going to start again.
You're covering the Lamrim.
Yeah, the land. Okay. So it's easiest to identify the inherently existent I when it seems the strongest. The two most commonly used examples of when this happens is when you feel your life is at stake, like standing near a cliff, obviously not something you should do on purpose. And when someone blames you for something you didn't do, how dare you blame me? When you feel this strong sense of I, use this chance to hunt for it. Upon not finding it, you will come one step closer to really believing the inherently existent self doesn't exist. And for the last line, Arya Ken Rinpoche states that offering victory means you offer your good deeds or any success to the people who harmed you. And the 6th verse, when the one who I have benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. And the pith instruction here is to recognize the one who harms you is more kind than the one who helps you. Chekhov gives one very good example of this situation about Drom Tumpa, the main disciple of Atisha. He went to visit a Dharma friend without an invitation or telling him he was coming. His friend got so offended that he removed his belongings and locked Drontumpa in a dark room. As a beginner, coming out of that situation without getting upset is beyond my ability. But I tried it on smaller things, like not getting upset if a friend didn't invite me to a party. There are many approaches to help you not get upset. One is to think of it as karma ripening, which reminds me of my favorite story that I am so glad I got to work into this talk. And I apologize for reading so many parts of it because I love it so. It was written by Shar Keldon Gyatso of the 17th century. He was ordained by the 4th Panchen Lama and is sometimes referred to as a Galupa equivalent to Milarepa, as he wrote so many songs of realization. This one is about a make-believe conversation he had with fleas, lice, and lice eggs. I hope that's politically correct. I guess it was.
Word.
Okay.
Here.
At one time, because I saw on the surface of my food and garments and so on, that there were many lice calmly meandering, many fleas floating about, and many lice eggs smiling and hanging in relaxed way, I advise them as follows. Listen, you lice who are roaming about. You lice have eaten my body. Even if you are happy when you eat and drink, when I see you, what do you think? You thoughtless fleas, skilled in flight, true or not, continue eating and be clear about it. You bright white and smiling louse eggs, even if you are like pearls when you are looked at, when I see my contaminated garments, without thinking of my next life, I want to kill you. All the young and old lice huddled together and made a secret council and replied to me as follows. You old monk, you know the karma of virtue and sin. In previous lives, you ate others. On that strength, we will eat you. Now you have difficulty in replying. Above all, don't lecture us. Think about karma. If you were now to kill some of us, we'll also eat you. Otherwise, you will need us, one another, forevermore. Now, whether we eat you or not is your call. Then the fleas said, Listen, our watchman, at times make ourselves soar up and at times float down. You in the ocean of the cycle of the three realms sometimes soar up and sometimes soar down or float down. You don't be down there, soar upwards. Up on a solitary peak, you'll soar in delight. The nature of your mind will soar in the expanse of the sky. Don't threaten us, float up like us. Then the lice, eggs, smiling, said, In our meditation huts, within the fabric of your clothes, our bodies not moving, we meditate in samadhi. You delight in meditative states in solitude. Don't hurt us, but dwell as we dwell. Then they said in unison, Also, listen, old monk, listen. Don't eat dead food or funeral repasts, and the black lice won't eat you. Don't rove about in towns, but go up to a mountain hermitage, isolated, pleasant, on top of a green grass in a solitary and pleasant place. You will dwell in happiness, and the fleas as a group will be committed to never bothering you. Don't look at other people, look at yourself. Looking at others is simply pursuing your own benefit. That's my favorite line. Strive to become completely enlightened, and when you achieve enlightenment, we will also be in your retinue. Moreover, listen when you are sitting in meditation and we bite you. Recall your karma of past lives and be liberated from sinful karma. You will exert yourself in realizing good karma. Based on what the insects had said to me, I decided to go and meditate and said these words. Because I have entered the blessings of a holy Lama, lice, fleas, and lice eggs have expounded the religion. Because religion is deep, I have turned my mind to it. In order to practice religion, I will go to a solitary place. Isn't that nice? His Holiness the Dalai Lama summarizes. Here we learn that about this verse. Here we learn that not only should you be tolerant of such people, but in fact you should view them as our spiritual teachers, or put another way, as objects of spiritual learning. They have taught you the exact meaning of karma, and this experience has exhausted your bad karma from a heavy misdeed, so rejoice. There are other approaches to help you not get upset. Geshe Laktor says, to avoid getting upset, learn to not expect anything in return for anything you have done or do. When you give, let go of it and really give it. If you expect something in return, you aren't really giving. And the same applies to love. We can also remember that everyone is suffering, so they might not have it in them to say thank you or return the favor and generate compassion for them. Then the seventh verse, I might run over.
It's all right.
Okay.
Take the time you need. This is your initial speech.
Sorry.
All of us have time.
Okay, we all have time. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone without exception all help. This is the seventh verse. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone without exception all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harms and sufferings of my mothers. The pith instruction here is to give help and happiness to others and take on their harm and suffering. This verse is about the practice of Tonglen, or giving and taking. His Holiness summarizes, this verse presents a specific Buddhist practice known as the practice of taking and giving, Tonglen, and it is by means of visualization of giving and taking that we practice equalizing and exchanging ourselves with others. It encapsulates the practice of loving kindness and compassion. The practice of giving emphasizes the practice of loving kindness, whereas the practice of taking emphasizes the practice of compassion. I remember years ago, Rinpoche held a party at Stephen's building. He had brought some special Mongolian vodka that he had been given as a gift. There was a group of us standing around Rinpoche, and someone noticed a mark on his leg. It was quite large. Maya joked that he had been doing Tom Len for us. Of course he denied it, but who knows? It is a very powerful practice. In fact, in the days of Dram Tumpa, it was referred to as the Dharma of the lepers, as so many of them were able to cure themselves doing this practice. It appears in many texts and prayers, such as Lama Chopa. Venerable and compassionate gurus, by letting all the black karmic obscurations and sufferings of sentient beings, mother sentient beings, ripen upon me, and giving to others my happiness and good deeds, may all sentient beings have happiness. Bless me thus. And in Shantideva's Bodhisattva way of life, if I do not actually exchange my happiness for the suffering of others, I shall not attain the state of Buddhahood, and even in cyclic existence shall have no joy. The prayer in Nagarjuna's letter to a friend: may their ill deeds or sufferings ripen upon me, and all my virtues and happiness ripen upon them. In fact, to finish the story about Dram Tumpa being locked in a dark room by his Dharma friend, he summarizes the event, quoting from this last prayer. That was when it became clear whether I had trained my mind in loving kindness and compassion, and whether the lines, may these sufferings ripen upon me, and may all happiness ripen upon them, have remained a lie to me. Obviously, he was a good practitioner, so I'm sure he came out quite well. Dram Tumpa was taught this practice by Atisha. It is in Atisha's text called the Bodhisattva Garland of Gems, which is in the form of a conversation between him and Dram Tumpa. Sometimes he refers to him as Dram. So Dram Tumpa asks him for a method that will avert things happening in this life, such as being killed. And the conversation begins with Dram Tumpa saying, don't you have other methods to speak of besides this? Mentally take upon yourself all sufferings, Dram. In that case, Master, what is the method for this taking? Dram, draw forth the sufferings for all by means of your breath. How should one relate to one's own virtues? Dram, place them astride your breath and give them to others. What happens after this? They will become like visualized emanating light rays and withdraw them. What happens after this? Buddhahood, the perfect fulfillment of abandonment and realization, will come to be. Dram Tumpa later elaborates on what you take. Taking illness, taking malevolent forces, taking obstacles, and taking karma and afflictions. Alan Wallace, in his book Buddhism with an Attitude, adds some detail. The practitioner makes a wish such as, may you be free of suffering and the cause of suffering, and visualize that all of the subject's suffering turns into black smoke or tar or ash. This black smoke of suffering is inhaled by the practitioner into his or her heart, where it is transformed. In an instant, both that cloud of misery and your self-centeredness mutually extinguish each other, leaving not a trace of either behind. With the destruction of self-cherishing after the in-breath, the practitioner exhales pure white light and sends a compassionate wish to the subject. May you have happiness in the cause of happiness. And then with the visualized white light, the practitioner sends out visualizations and heartfelt wishes of anything that might bring the subject both relative happiness and transcendent joy, including food, love, clothing, friends, money, faith, ethics, wisdom, and awakening mind. But the practitioner is also encouraged to offer his or her own possessions, happiness, joy, health, and even his or her own body, which continues the practice of releasing self-cherishing. We suffer because of our self-grasping and the self-cherishing mind. It's the self-cherishing that always wants us to be happy. I don't want to part with any of my happiness, and I totally don't want to suffer any more than I already am. This practice can help us lessen the emphasis we usually put on our own happiness, lessen the self-cherishing attitude, and increase our compassion in order for us to be able to bear some suffering. It helps bring us some contentment in all that life hands us, and this brings about happiness, and who doesn't want that? My last boss was a Brahmin. Once he said, "No matter what, I am happy, even when I am sad." What a wonderful phrase of contentment. In the eighth and last verse, I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the states of the eight worldly concerns, and by understanding all phenomena as like illusions, be released from the bondage of attachment. And the fifth instruction here is to remain pure and overcome attachments to illusionary objects. As for the first two lines of this verse, I would like to say, hip hip hooray for Nagarjuna. In just one four-line verse in his letter to a friend, he cuts to the heart of what guides most of our actions in samsara. He lays it out on the line and says it like it is. He just wrote the eight worldly concerns as pairs: gain, loss; pleasure, pain; praise, blame; fame, dishonor. Of course, there are variations of these. These need to be conjoined with either present tense adjectives such as being happy and unhappy respectively about these, or future tense of hope and fear. So hope for gain and fear of loss, hope for pleasure and fear of pain, hope for praise and fear of blame, hope for fame and fear of dishonor and insignificance. So when doing these practices as well as our other activities, our minds and motivation should not be driven by any of these. As Geshe Lakdor points out, the problem is that the eight worldly concerns are trying to tell you what to do. So you should decide not to be a puppet and live your own life. Don't be guided by them, especially in decision making. As Chekwa says, if we fall under the influence of these eight, then our pursuits become those of self-interest. When this occurs, then the sacred Dharma has been turned into demons. And we totally don't want that to happen because these teachings are very precious. So precious that many people have given their lives to preserve them, such as Yeshio, a king of Tibet from the 10th century. He gave his life so Atisha could go to Tibet. So we should do our best and not let him and countless others die in vain. Chekwa summarizes the last two lines of this verse. If we understand mundane concerns as akin to illusions, later we will relinquish them. Nothing within our present experience possesses substantial reality. This is ultimate bodhicitta, the understanding of emptiness of inherent existence of phenomena, such as our aggregates, and of persons, that good old I and mine. Actually, there is some debate as to whether the mine falls under phenomena or persons, but explaining that is above my pay grade. As Tony says, thanks for your patience listening. I will now turn it back to him. Thank you.
And I'm floored. Wonderful teaching. No, you don't have to put my face there. Everybody see my face all these. Nobody wants to see an old guy. We'll just do the prayer for the recollection of 3 jewels for those who have passed away, specifically my boss, who I worked for 30 years. Marty Rabinos. I can't see all the people we would have prayed for. We have a small thing, so whatever is on the screen we'll pray for. But thank you so much, Jackie. But first let's do the prayers, and it'll be a little bit over, but unless you have to catch your flight to Davos or something, you can hold out for a while. I prostrate to the omniscient one. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arahat, Samyak Sang Buddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strengths cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He's not stained by the realm of desire. He's not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi, where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma, which is taught by the Bhagavat, is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great Jnana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. Thank you very much, Jack. You obviously put in a ton of work, and it showed. This is a blessed teaching. We're going to have, you have it written out. So copyright it by sending a letter to yourself, certified letter, and then we'll print it up. It's going to be part of our archive. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Next class, Monday night, 7 o'clock. Jackie will be joining us again in the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's going back to, so, again, I'm without words, so, in my big mouth, this is rare. Good night,
Thank
guys.
you. Thanks, everyone.